Good morning, Bill.
Hello, Mark. It's getting a bit, it's winter time, but I was told the other day by our morning rowing crew, don't worry, it's dark at 6 o'clock and it's 2 degrees, but winter is coming to an end soon. So, now, Mark, yesterday I went to a session at Wyndham Vale, run by the Committee for Wyndham Vale.
Oh, excellent.
In conjunction with Avalon Airport.
And how was that?
And it was excellent. I think sitting down here in Geelong, we associate Avalon as us, as part of us. But what you don't realise is that Wyndham Vale are very heavily connected to Avalon Airport, or to the future of Avalon Airport.
Well, it's a big employment precinct.
Well, it is, and we keep forgetting that some of the biggest tourist attractions are in Werribee, particularly in talk about the zoo.
The Werribee Zoo,
Werribee Mansion, the Rose Garden and all of that. And so they've got what they call the Wyndham Vale Avalon Corridor. And it's really good to see how serious they are about promoting it. And I think that'll help everybody in the region.
Well, the zoo's one of the biggest tourist attractions at Werribee, I think, in Victoria and across Australia.
It is, and everyone is raving about the new elephant enclosure.
The elephant thing's huge,
so
yes.
I must get there and have a look.
Yes, excellent. So who's today's guest, Bill?
Well, today we've got David. Right?
David Buchanan.
Yes, and David wears a couple of different hats.
He does.
And I've come across David. In fact, David, was only 2 weeks ago, was it? We went to Toyota, what's it called?
Toyota 2 Show. It's a hard one to pronounce, Bill.
Which is a warehouse in Tarneet, and it's very impressive. Yeah, and it's probably the last remaining remnant of the Toyota manufacturing business here in Australia.
Excellent.
So welcome.
So welcome, David.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for having me.
That's good.
So we always start with the very simple question: where was primary school?
Primary school, gentlemen. Ballarat, and it was MacArthur Street Primary School up in North Ballarat. So that's going back into the mid-70s. So it's going back a long while.
And it's still there?
It is actually still there. Yeah, it is still there. It's probably heritage listed at this point, but it's an old red clinker brick building, and it's definitely still a primary school as far as I'm aware.
And probably in those days, no heating, no air conditioning.
Yeah, correct. Right? Yeah, absolutely no heating.
Toughen up.
That's right.
Yeah, and did you have the little milk bottles delivered at morning tea
We did,
time?
yes, we did. In fact, I was bell monitor, so I got the wonderful job of ringing the bell for morning tea and for lunchtime. So, yes, it was a very good primary school, but, yeah, very lucky it was only 300-400 metres from home, so I was able to walk there and walk home, which was wonderful.
And then high school?
High school, I was actually went to Ballarat North Technical School, so I'm a graduate of a technical school, which is pretty rare these days. So we were trained in engineering workshop, metallurgy, engineering drawing, automotive, woodwork, all the old trades. So, yeah, I was very privileged to attend Ballarat North Tech. And HSC, we were the first group that went through a HSC year with a technical school. So we actually formed up with Wendouree High at the time. So we were the guinea pig group that went through for the first time into a HSC.
Wow.
Well, David, yesterday on radio driving back from Werribee, there was a very robust conversation about tech schools.
Yes.
And it started because of the lack of trades. And in Geelong, and as you know, I'm connected to a business down here involved in steel, etc.
Yes.
At the moment, and you can't get skilled trades. And as I say, this conversation went back to the technical schools, and now people are saying, well, do we need to bring them back? You know, and it's a worthwhile conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it is, Bill, because Ballarat North Tech mainly was there to provide for people who wanted to go into apprenticeships. So we were one of the rare groups that were trained up on all the apprenticeship skills, but then got the ability to go to university as well. So I think you get a really good grounding of all the different types of trades. We learned how to do sheet metal work. We learned how to pull a motor apart and put it back together. So it was really good grounding for that technical knowledge, that even if those who wanted to go into engineering and further studies, there was really good grounding, welding, just all the basic things that you need to know. And I think it would be good to bring them back.
Yeah, and I'm a big advocate of the VET program
Yeah,
in secondary colleges.
absolutely.
Anyway, we'll move on.
So while you were at high school, were you thinking about where you wanted to go? What with all the technical stuff around you, what was the drive?
Well, that's a good question, Mark. Actually, my original idea was to get into computer science. So it's one of those initial thoughts back in the 80s, so we're going back to the 80s, where computers were the incoming thing and home computers were coming up. So, yeah, I really wanted to study computer studies and computer science. So I initially entered to Ballarat University looking to do a computer science degree.
Okay.
But true story, I failed first year advanced maths, and so the rest is history. So I had the choice to either go back and do mathematics for another year and only mathematics, or transition into the science and metallurgy degree, which is where I ended up.
Okay, interesting.
Yep.
And did you have any casual jobs while you were at school and into uni?
Yeah, I absolutely did. I started a paper round at the age of 13.
Yep.
The
Here
old
we
paper
go.
round.
Paper rounds.
Another paper round, boy.
Another
In fact, we
paper
can
boy.
actually pick people's ages now, because there's the group that now go, I worked at Woolies or Coles or Target.
Oh, yes.
And there's the group that had the paper round.
Yeah, so I'll look a little bit of a backstory there. My dad unfortunately passed away when I was quite young from cancer, and so yeah, paper round was a way of, I guess, generating a little bit of income at the time. And I guess as my nature, I ended up with 2 paper rounds. So not only one, I ended up doing 2. So I was up at 5 every morning, 6 days a week.
And in Ballarat.
In Ballarat in the winter.
You would have had to wear your woolies in those days.
Bill, it was absolutely freezing.
Snowshoes.
Yeah, so two paper rounds. But then, as luck would have it, I managed to secure a role at the local McDonald's store in Bakery Hill in Ballarat there. So
I've been there a long time, that one, isn't it?
it's been there a very long time. And I was lucky enough to get promoted to become a shift manager at the time at 17. So I was running shifts by myself by the time I was 18. And so I did that part-time while I completed uni.
Okay. And then first real job?
First real job was tube makers. So if anyone on the podcast remembers, that was part of what's now called One Steel, which has had various names lately, GFG, Alliance, etc. But yeah, the original One Steel group, and it was a foundry up in Ballarat. So I was a quality manager, working on the afternoon shift and inspecting castings and running furnaces when I had to, and basically sampling all the furnace metal and running a technical spark spectrometer to make sure the metal was correct for melt. And so it was a busy role, but it was a good role. It was a very interesting role. For 3 years I ran that afternoon shift together with the supervisors, and but I was certainly very, very young and very inexperienced, that's for sure.
Was that the classical sand casting in those days?
Yeah, correct, Bill.
Oh,
Yes.
I have worked at a foundry.
Have you?
Or advised on a foundry, I should say.
Excellent.
And then they moved into the I forget the name of it now, where you make the moulds, and I forget the process. But they still did sand casting.
This is a
That's
black
quite
sand.
incredible to watch.
Yes, yes, we had one of the biggest black sand casting foundries, I think, probably at the time in Australia, and making parts for Nissan, Toyota Motor Company, for engine brackets and power steering brackets. So we had a big machine shop. Again, a lot of the disappearing skills we were just talking about before. A lot of people coming through tech schools were in there with us running these plants, and but yeah, it was a very interesting 3 years.
Are there many foundries around these days?
Not many left. IXL Casting still here in Geelong.
Yeah, and AW Bell in Dandenong.
Yes.
But that was the company I was doing the work with, and they did that. And now they're and I was there when we decided to get a new 3D printer.
Oh, right.
Or it was a big second-hand printer out of the US.
Wow.
And now I saw recently they're making aircraft parts under the F-35 program.
Oh, wow.
As Miranda doing in Geelong.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, interesting. Because it was big industry, wasn't it? The foundries in those days.
The foundry industry was very large. We were doing mainly water pipe fittings, so bends and tees, so for people like Bowen Water and other groups across Australia. So we supplied the whole of Australia at the time. So yeah, it really was a big industry, but unfortunately, as most things manufacturing are very energy intense, labour intense, and it's shut itself. Expensive, yeah. So it's shut down now, unfortunately.
So where did you move to from there? What led you out of there?
So fundamentally, when they shut the foundry, we had the option to progress to their sister foundry in Currumbin in Queensland. So had the opportunity to go up there as a quality person. Had a look at it, just realised that Queensland in a foundry is probably not a good option. So I was lucky enough to secure a role. Very long story, but secure a role with Atlas Steel at the time. So it's a stainless steel distribution company. And they were sort of transitioning into very technical sales. And so looking for young people at the time. I was only 21, I think, at the time. So quite young, just fresh out of uni. And very lucky to get a role in the projects department. So one of my first roles there was to supply the Shell refinery at the time with some stainless steel for the desulfurization unit. So yeah, it was a really, really good business, very focused on its marketing and technical sales. So it was a really good place to work.
Still exist?
Absolutely, yeah. Atlas Steel, now part of the Amari Metal Group. Still one of the biggest stainless steel distributors in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, steel industries are very nearly a case of get big or get out.
Correct. No, absolutely correct.
And as you know, I'm doing some work with a small one. And that's an interesting exercise in itself. But so you've had a few years in the steel industry.
Yes.
Then, as we talk about, what was the tipping point that changed direction for you?
Oh, that's a very good question. But I think the tipping point really was when I went and managed a steel company at 27 years old. I was given the opportunity to be state manager of a small family-owned business called Global Metals, and that had 4 or 5 directors. In Sydney, I was the only person to sit on the board who was a non-shareholder. So I think that's when I changed direction, Bill, because 3 years of doing that, leaving Geelong at 10 to 5 in the morning, getting home at 7 p.m. at night, I realised that wasn't sustainable. So that was really a tipping point for my career.
Well, we've heard that story before, haven't we, Mark? Yes.
The drive. Where did that take you then?
So that took me into international trading. So at the time, spent 3 years there, and it was really walked into an empty warehouse. So built it up from pretty much nothing to what was a profitable business in the end, which is important, as people were saying, very important, but quite small scale business. At the time, I started to look around and sort of see what else was out there. It was a little bit more corporate, a little bit more suited to marketing, sales, rather than the operations that I was running. And as luck would have it, Mitsui, which is one of the biggest Japanese companies in the world, were looking to get a number of young staff at the time to come into their metals, their steel departments, energy, wood chips. So there was quite an intake of again, younger people. I was just turning 30. And so it was a really good time and a good opportunity to get into something I had no idea about, which was international trade. And that was really the pivot point for me.
Good company?
Excellent company. Yeah, excellent company. Developed by the Japanese samurai back in the 1600s. So been around a little while. Established in Australia in 1902. So very good pedigree. The second largest exporter out of Australia, which is not well known. JVs with BHP, Rio Tinto, and about $16 billion invested in Australia. So a really strong company.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, incredible company.
David, a couple of weeks ago, you and I went to, as I mentioned before, to the Toyota distribution centre.
Yes.
What was your connection with Toyota?
So, Bill, after 7 years with Mitsui, an ex-colleague of mine actually approached me over 3 beers in a hotel in Melbourne CBD, which became an interview. And at the time, Toyota was just about to build what was a 300-ton blanking line, which is where we visited together. Yeah. State-of-the-art facility, huge Komatsu robots, automation. And he basically gave me an offer I couldn't refuse and said, come along and join Toyota Group. We'll have you as general manager within about 12 months. And so that was a really big opportunity, Bill. And, of course, Toyota is a huge name. Very hard to turn down a job offer like that.
So they still, what are they operating on at the warehouse you went to look at them?
Oh, they are a distribution centre.
Oh, that.
Yeah, because of the I guess their footprint's huge.
Yes.
That's right. But also the reason we went there was because of their expertise in the lean system.
Yes.
Or it's got a Japanese name and I don't know what it is.
It's Toyota production system.
Yeah,
but
and it's anyone in manufacturing should, and if particularly family businesses, if you don't understand the Toyota production system, you should get to know it.
Well, it's world famous, isn't
Oh,
it?
of course it is. Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's the
that's
benchmark
right.
across the world.
So
Absolutely.
from when they closed that down, where to next?
So, ran that for 14 years, Bill. And where to next was starting my own business. So I was privileged through Toyota to get my graduation at the Australian Institute of Company Directors. At the time, we were looking to make investments in Australia, so they said, we better train him up how to be a board member. So very privileged to have that behind me. And the last day of Toyota shut the lights off Toyota Tusho, had shut the lights off and started my own trading business. So along with a business partner in Melbourne, and we worked with Mitsui, my former employer. And we set up a trading business that was doing importing of mainly structural steel pipes, so big diameter, large diameter pipes, plates, structural beams. And so that was sort of the start of what's become, the next chapter, I guess.
And was that Japanese steel or?
It's a combination, actually. That's a good question, Mark. Japanese, Korean, Taiwanese, a little bit of Chinese, but predominantly Japanese, Korean and Taiwanese products.
Still going?
We shut that business, or actually we sold that business to a German company called Kremer Steel this time last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a bittersweet moment, but the industry, as Bill pointed out before, you've got to be large and you've got to have a huge balance sheet, and as small company trading is very challenging.
Very challenging.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
And today, David, you wear two new hats.
I do, Bill.
Right, you want to tell our listeners about your two hats?
I will, sir.
Not black hats or anything. Just
hats. Just hats.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good question, sir. So, nationally, I run what's called the Australian Steel Association. And a bit of a side note for you both is it was started here in Geelong in 1978. A gentleman called Jack Howard, or Merton as his nickname, Merton Howard. He was ex-customs and decided that he wanted to see a level playing field for the Australian industry, because at the time there were quotas from BHP. You had to have a license to buy steel from BHP. So he said that can't be fair. So he started up the association in 78 at the waterfront, funny enough, in one of the buildings at the waterfront, and beautiful view of the bay, now no longer there. But he spent nearly 20 plus years, almost longer, 30 years as the CEO. So Jack really got focused in on things such as anti-dumping, things ACCC. We work with, he was working with government, to Senate inquiries and all sorts of incredible things, just to really open up the market, but make sure it was fair for mum and dad companies who were producing something in Australia who couldn't get a license to buy, that they could actually, at the time, probably access Japanese or Korean materials. So, yeah, it was a really interesting starting point. So I was lucky enough to take over that role. I'm the third CEO to have the role. I was lucky enough to take that role about 4 years ago now, during the pandemic. So as we were all sitting at home, there was nothing else to do. So why not take on a national role? But and so that's been a really interesting hat. And the second hat, I run the Geelong Advanced Fibre Cluster, which is really around a lot of the composites and carbon fibre manufacturing. People like Carbon Revolution, Quick Step, Sykes Rowing. Of course, Bill would know Sykes Rowing very well. And more broadly now, some of the more national, international companies, and Toyota Tusho is now a member as well, where we visited last week, and they're looking at some sustainability and carbon refining or recycling solutions. So, yeah, so a couple of hats there.
And fairly heavily connected to Deakin.
It is, yeah. The cluster was actually formed by Deakin University, along with Quickstep and Sykes Rowing, Bill. So, very heavy connections into Deakin.
And what's the aim?
Look, the aim is collaboration. So it's everyone asks what's a cluster, and it's very different to the association. So the association's a lead industry body. We speak to government, we lobby, we do all sorts of things. But with the cluster, it's really about collaboration. The event that we held the other week, which Bill attended, it's about bringing everybody together, and we talk about this word co-opetition. So people are actually working with machinery that they might be able to lend someone else. So Bill might have some machinery that he could lend you, Mark, even though...
you might be competitors.
You might be competitors, that's right. But then it's utilising the ecosystem in Geelong to grow what we're hoping will be a centre of excellence in and around Australia. So it's about collaboration. It's about innovation. Obviously, we've got some incredible engineers and technicians and researchers. So it's about that innovation piece. And now more recently, we're looking to work with the international collaboration as well. So we've just started working with the Japanese. We've got the Osaka Chamber of Commerce coming out in October.
Oh, cool.
And they have an advanced materials cluster that we're going to bring to Geelong. So, so it's really about that connectivity and what the groups can build jointly together.
So how has the change in the US impacted on you then?
On the steel side, very interesting actually. Yeah. It's spent a bit of time with Sky News and Channel 9 recently. It's a little bit early to say. Like, as you're both aware, Australia did cop tariffs from Mr. Trump. But you're probably both aware that is only BlueScope, which is exporting steel at the moment to the US and, funnily enough, to their own business. So it's really not going to have a significant impact on Australia. I think the problem we're seeing now in the steel industry, at least, is the impacts of the tariffs are diverting steel flows around the world. And last night I sat on the OECD Steel Committee meeting, online obviously, from Paris, and there's a real concern that the trade flow disruptions, and there's an overcapacity now of steel globally, which is in hundreds of millions of tonnes. In fact, I think the number was somewhere around 700 million tonnes excess capacity of crude steel, and about 200 million tonnes of finished goods. So it's becoming an issue where we're going to see some trade disruptions over the next probably 12 to 24 months, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And
from the fibre side, is there, if you're trying to build collaboration, how does that? Are you involved with the US?
No, not so much with the US. So the collaboration with Japan, I guess, one of the biggest suppliers of carbon fibre in the world, and Japanese, of course, very textile based originally. So the impact from the US is negligible on the carbon fibre. What the impact really will be our friends in China who have developed a lot of capacity now. So we're starting to see Chinese suppliers now coming to the market, and as you can imagine, they've built up huge volume of capability. Highly sophisticated now in terms of their technology, and so we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg, and that's been pushed along with the I guess the growth of the wind tower industry. So as you probably both know, wind towers. Blades particularly are made from composites with carbon fibre strengthening inside the blade. So we're starting to see the huge requirement for carbon fibre in blades driving Chinese investment, huge capacity, and that's now coming our way.
So is that good or bad?
Could be good, could be bad. I think,
let's look 40 years down the track when those wind farms are redundant from use. I mean, their age, they've reached their use by date.
That's right, Bill.
That's when we're going to see some issues. And it was pointed out to me last week that in Denmark, I think it is, that those offshore wind farms, which we're going to copy here in Australia, and Geelong Port's very involved in bringing those in and have got some great opportunities.
Absolutely.
But in Denmark, they're faced with an enormous problem now of those offshore wind farms. What do they do with them? They've reach their use-by date?
Well, yeah, so it's a good point. I know researchers, Deakin and others are looking, Ballarat Uni are looking at ways to recycle the blades. There is change now coming with blade design, so you can actually remove the carbon fibre from the composite, which means you can then recycle the fibre separately, because one of the problems at the moment, it's all mixed. You can't really recycle it. It just doesn't make any sense. So there is design changes coming, Bill, but the volume, the sheer volume, is a real challenge. One of my other sins, I'm chairman of a non-destructive testing company, and we've just purchased funny enough, a drone that can actually go and inspect wind towers.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
So there's an emerging industry there in terms of trying to prolong the life of the towers and the blades by doing regular inspections.
Well, the CEO of Geelong Port, who Mark and I know,
yes,
in fact, he's got my same surname as me.
That's right.
He was talking about how big these new turbines for the offshore are.
Terrifying.
If you stand next to one up near Ballarat and you think that's big, you wait till you see these.
Even bigger.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did actually work with ICN Networks this time last year to look at whether we could build those blades here, actually, Bill. And one of the things we tossed around was whether you could repurpose the old Alcoa site, because you've got a deep water port. You could actually build the blades and then put them on ships and then take them offshore. But unfortunately, economies of scale in Australia, as we all well aware, and energy costs. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So, but certainly some challenges.
I do.
Oh, Bill does. Okay.
But for another day. Leave that for another day. All right.
Yeah.
So how do people get in touch with you, David? With your hat with the steel industry?
Yes.
How do people find you?
Yeah, that's easy, Mark. So if they just get online, they can go to the Australian Steel Association.com.au and they'll find my connection details there. Or from the composite side, they can get onto the Advanced Fibre Cluster Geelong website, and connections are there as well.
And you're always looking for people to get involved. And
Absolutely, yeah. I guess both are industry membership body organisations, so they rely on members, but they do rely on members engaging with us and actually making a difference. So it's not so much myself, it's about the members really making a difference together.
Fantastic. So thank you, David. That was really interesting. I've learnt more about steel than I have chatting to you.
as we always hope, Mark, people listening to these podcasts learn something new.
Yep.
Right? And I guess I'm sure they will have, David, so thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.